What's up? What's going on, college sports fans? Man, I tell you what, we had a heck of a day, didn't we? Has everybody seen this news out of the Pac-12? Um, I'm gonna go into that for a little bit, but also there was some news out of Michigan that Jim Harbaugh bought somebody a cheeseburger, a recruit a cheeseburger. Let me ask you, what's more important: Pac-12 possibly stealing $50 million from a media outlet, or Jim Harbaugh buying a recruit a cheeseburger? Yeah. So anyway, glad you guys are with us. Golden Blue will be joining us here in a little bit. He's doing something right now, but he'll be in here. Um, I'll turn my camera on here for a second, but here's my problem. Greatest internet. So when my camera goes on, my internet goes down. So I probably just sit and stutter. So I will leave my camera off for this show if you guys don't mind. Okay, let's talk about this Pac-12 news, and I'm going to. By the way, I'm Joey Foster. Everyone, just letting you know. I'm going to go into this Pac-12 news and let everybody know what's going on, in case you haven't seen it. But I believe, for the most part, everybody's seen all the news that came out today. Um, let me find the actual article here. I'm sorry I didn't have it up, but I mean, here's what's going on. So the Pac-12 released a statement today that says, earlier today, the Pac-12 terminated the employment of two senior executives effective immediately. This action was taken following an investigation conducted by independent outside legal counsel. The terminations resulted from a failure by those two executives to disclose material information to the Pac-12 Board of Directors and external Pac-12 auditors in connection with overpayments by the Pac-12 network distribution partner dating back to 2016. The Pac-12 took immediate and appropriate action to address this matter, consistent with best governance practices. Pac-12 leadership is committed to supporting our members, on and on and on. Anyway, so here's what happened. Supposedly, what happened. Okay, this is all alleged right now. So allegedly, they fired two senior officials. I've seen alleged reports, that it was the president and the CFO of the Pac-12. Because apparently there was a $50 million discrepancy. Now, I was hoping that I could get a Pac-12 guy on here with me tonight. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anybody that was able to come on. And some of them don't want to comment on it right now until everything is settled, and want to wait till tomorrow, possibly even Monday, because there could be, the DA could be ended up bringing charges against a couple of people in the Pac-12. So what I want to talk about is how this could ultimately hurt the Pac-12. They could be finished, they could be done, or maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. But if it hurts the Pac-12, it's going to help the Big 12 and and the Big 10. I'm sorry. So if it hurts the Pac-12, it'll help the Big 12 and the Big 10. But anyway, the two executives apparently, so it was found in 2016 that there was a $50 million discrepancy. It was taken, and it was found by outside counsel, and it was taken to the president of the Pac-12, allegedly, and told to take care of it. And this was done in 2017, that the information got to the president and CFO. They did nothing about it, and they've done nothing about it every year. Now, they've come out and said, supposedly, that it wasn't Fox and ESPN, that it was another media outlet. So probably Comcast would be my guess. I mean, I think that they have a deal with Comcast as well. So we're looking at this right now, and it just amazes me that the news that everybody's talking about, that I see everywhere, is how Jim Harbaugh bought a recruit a cheeseburger. College football makes no sense to me. That I can't figure it out. But anyway, so these issues go back to Larry Scott. Okay, this is not a George Kliavkoff problem at all. This goes back to Larry Scott, back to 2016. And they was first noticed, the two officials that were fired today. So let me go look down through here real quick. I'm trying to pull out the notes here. Now, supposedly the total overpayment since 2016 is $50 million. Now, the way I read the article, I couldn't figure that out. If it was $50 million total overpayment, or $50 million per year, but I'm sure it's not $50 million a year. I mean, there's no way that would happen. But $50 million. Now, if I was the media outlet, I would make them pay it back with interest. I don't know how you guys would feel about that, but I'd make them pay it back with interest and stuff. It just seems ridiculous to me that they did nothing about it. But luckily, George Clearclough has. Um, it was not this. The information of the overpayment was not even shared with the external auditors on this matter. So the auditors didn't even know it was there. Once the distributing partner, okay, so once whoever it was, whether it was Comcast or ESPN or Fox, whoever it was, once they learned of it, they contacted the PAC, who took really quick action at that time. So, it was immediately taken care of. So I mean, I just wonder. So Barrett Sports Media put out an article, and they're expressing concerns about how there's no TV deal in the Pac-12 right now. There's not been a TV deal that's come to light, and that there's a lot of people inside the conference that are growing concerns about the matter. So that's from Barrett Sports Media. John Wilner says of Mercury News says that a source told him the Pac cannot get overconfident. And another source told Milner that the conference could overplay its hand on this matter. So, that's pretty big news coming out of there. Now, my question to you guys, does this help the Big 12 and Big 10 if they decide to go poaching? Because ultimately, the schools are going to have to pay this back. So you're looking at the Pac-12 schools having to pay back this $50 million, plus possibly even more. Who knows? We don't know the total on it yet. They're saying $50 million. So I'm trying to figure that out. And on top of all that, get this, guys. So I'm hearing news about a bill in the state of California that's coming before, I guess, their Congress in California. That's going to require 50% of all revenue California schools' athletic budget to flow down to football, basketball, and women's basketball players. Now, it's 50% of the revenue, not 50% of the profit. That they're going to require. The state of California is trying to pass a law that 50% of all revenue goes to the players in California that play football, basketball, and women's basketball. I mean, and apparently this bill has quite a bit of support. Now, I don't know, if that's going to pass or not. But if it don't pass, they'll try something else. They tried something here just a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't. That didn't pass. But now they're trying this. So eventually they're going to get something passed, and it'll be a crazy California law. We all know how those go. It'll be something crazy out in California. I mean, as it is now, you can't even buy half the stuff you need because it says might cause cancer in California and can't be sold or whatever. But here's my question to all of y'all. Who will have to pay this back? Who do y'all think? Will it be the schools? Will the Pac-12 just eat the $50 million themselves? Or, and, would you charge interest on this money if you was a media outlet? I mean, I would do something. And another thing too, what's this do for a future TV deal now for the Pac-12? From what I understand, Amazon's looking pretty hard at the Pac-12 and talking about coming on with the Pac-12. What will this do to those negotiations? Is Amazon going to turn their back now and walk away? So I'm just curious. Welcome everybody in. I'm Joey Foster. Like I said earlier, GBD will be in here with us in a little bit. He's doing some stuff right now. Let me give a big shout out to everybody in the chat real quick. Let me bring it up. Jacob Watson's here. Jacob, welcome in. Thank you, buddy, for being here. Mr. Timpool Man Live. Hi, how he says. Welcome in, Mr. Timpool. Alan Aaron is here. He says, let's go West Virginia Mountaineers. And he don't want nothing to do with Marshall Thundering Herd in football. Kevin Wood is here. Howdy, Kevin. Jonathan Ezell. Cheeseburger Gate. Yeah, Cheeseburger Gate for Michigan, right? MSU Detroit fans here. He says Big Ten will probably go after Oregon and Washington because they'll want the name brands of the Pac-12, especially since they're already getting USC and UCLA. I agree with that 100%. MSU Detroit fan. Kevin Wood is here. Howdy, Kevin. Welcome in. Go down through here. Let's see. Nightbot's here, obviously. Don't let Nightbot troll you guys too much. But appreciate Nightbot being here. Let's see what some of your comments are as I go down through here too. Let's see. Jonathan says, why wasn't live during the path by? It's like accurate description. Let's see. They must be talking to each other. That's why I can't make heads or tails out of that. MSU Detroit fan says the Fab Five scandal actually helped Izzo to win early years at Michigan State. Yeah, it did. Gumbo Too Sexy's here. Thank you for Gumby. I'm sorry, Gumby. Thank you for being here, Gumby. He says California may as well ban breathing at this point. I agree 100%. Alan says, yeah, the Big 12 and Big 10 should go get some Pac-12 teams. Then hopefully W could get out of the Big 12. You know, this could make for a big conference realignment shift again. Could it not? I mean, you know, if some of these teams went out of the Pac-12 now because of this, you know, especially if the Pac-12 comes to them and says, hey, you got to help repay this money. And someone said earlier, I don't know, someone had told me, they said it could be as much as $10 million per team to have to pay this back with penalties, fines, and everything else. So I don't know. That seems kind of high to me. But if it is $10 million per team, if you're Arizona and Arizona State, and Arizona's already on the fence, right? I mean, they're already on the fence, maybe possibly wanting to come to the Big 12. Probably just wanting to be there for the basketball, but still yet, if you're them schools and you're on the fence now, what does this do for you? Let's see who else we got in here. Let's look down here. Larry Pilgrim's here. Thanks for being here, Larry. He says, all it is doing is pushing us to professional football. Yeah, the California legislature doing that. Yeah, I agree 100%. Mr. Timberful Man says, rest in peace, Pac-12. Yes, sir. Larry Pilgrim, networks don't care how their money is spent as it doesn't change their revenue. True. Alan Aaron says, Joey Foster, my two favorite teams are West Virginia and that other team. Yeah, Marshall. I know, Aaron. I know, Alan. I mean, I know you're a Marshall guy. I can appreciate that. Marshall's a good team. I used to root for Marshall, but we never in lower division. You know, I can remember sitting at my radio listening to them play. It was a year I'm trying to think what year it was. They played. It was either North Carolina or NC State, and Marshall had a really good team that year, and they ended up beating them, I believe, or they might have lost by 1 point. It was a close game, and stuff. Marshall went on to win the national championship in their division that year. But anyway, thanks for being here, everybody. Yeah, this is crazy. I'll drop a StreamYard link if anybody'd like to come in and talk about any of this stuff or talk about something else. That's fine with me. Hey, come on in and let's chat about it. I'll drop that link here. There it is for you. Just remember, you will have to show me your face in the back room before I can bring you in. But come on in and let me know what you think. The StreamYard, if you've never used the StreamYard link before to come in and you're used to calling on the phone, it's the same thing. You don't have to, you've got control of your camera. So you can turn your camera off immediately. You have to turn it on in the back room to let me know that you're a real person. Larry, I see you back here. Will you turn your camera on for me a second? Oh, you're pitch dark, man. I can't see you. Okay, Larry. All right, Larry, I'll bring you in, buddy. Larry, how's it going, man?
It's going good. How are you, Joey?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. So what'd you think about all this news today?
Well, my team's the Utes. If you look at my profile picture, that's me with Kyle Whittingham. Anyway, I don't know. I didn't hear much about it. I was golfing today. I know I've heard they're trying to work out at Amazon, and from what last week I heard what's going on is they're trying to piecemeal, and Fox, ESPN, and CBS are all interested in some of the games going forward. So I heard that was part of the deal that was trying to be worked out.
Right.
I know the
Right.
universities, I guess you could say, got a loan, so to speak, from the conference, and I haven't heard anything about that till you brought that up. So
Well, yeah, that I guess that loan came out of that 50 million, huh? I mean,
there
right
was
now it's all allegations. Let's make that clear. They fired 2 executives. We do know that. Supposedly it was the president and the CFO. Okay, maybe it could be somebody else, but 50 million since 2016 in the grand scheme of college football, that don't sound like a lot of money. But I
right.
didn't understand the article either. Was it 50 million a year? Is it 50 million total? One place that says 50 million total. The next time it says it found a $50 million mistake in 2016 and every subsequent year since.
No, from what I
So
understand, it was what had happened is and it was under Larry, whatever his Larry Jackweed or whatever the heck his
yeah,
name
Larry
was,
Scott.
Larry Scott. Um, Basically, there was a contract. I believe that every school was going to get a certain amount, and that's not what it really was. But the conference still paid the money, worked it out with the teams, and I think it was one of those. Well, we'll catch up. We'll play catch up. One of those. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
they just never caught up, and so the league, from what I understood, slowly paid more money than they were getting. And so it might be 50 per team. I mean, because it seemed like, what was it about? I want to say, gosh, I'm trying to remember. It seemed like it was like they got overpaid like 8 million a team. So
Uh,
if you do the math over the years, that could, that could come up to 50 million maybe with interest and all that. But I know it was an issue, and a lot of the teams they gave money to, and they were going to play catch up. So that's not good. That's not good accounting, good business to begin with.
no, it's not.
Yeah, you can't
KD has
keep.
a question. He says, Joey, correct me if I'm wrong. The payback is between the conference and the media partner. If a school leaves the conference, is that school still on the hook for the money? If they're in the Pac 12 when this happened, they're on the hook, I would think. I
Well, it's
mean,
like if you went into business and you had a bunch of people, and you were, say there were 6 of you and you're or 12 of you, whatever, and you're working for somebody, and they said, hey, we need all of you to come do this job, and we're going to give you $40 a year for this job or whatever, and you get the job done, and they come back and say, well, our people only, they were supposed to give us 40 million, but they only gave us 35, and we're going to hold to giving you your 40, but we just want you to know, we're 5 million in the hole, and somewhere we're going to work together with you guys, and maybe the next year we're going to make 50, and we're going to have to take a little payback. Like it's one of those, like, pay it forward.
yeah.
But with the Pac-12, they just they don't get the views. And so, I don't care, you know, Greg Sankey, Warren, they're not, it's not them. They're given a golden goose. When you get that many viewers, you just have the power. The networks can charge more for ad revenue. So the Pac-12 is just not getting the views, and it's not as populated as the North or the South, and people have other crap they're doing. So,
Well, I know I seen somebody today was talking in another chat room that happens to be a Utah Ute fan who said out in Utah they can't even get the Pac-12 network most of the places. They can't
no,
even see it.
so I lived in Utah, and so I was a big NFL guy. I'd watch Utah when I could get them on regular TV, right? But I had direct TV because I loved my NFL, and so I had the Sunday ticket. And when the NFL started doing all that political bull crap, you can't get Pac-12 on direct TV. And so I just made the switch and said, screw it. And I went with Comcast, and they carry Pac-12. I'm in Florida, and I have Dish Network, and I can get the Pac-12. But
Yeah.
the only thing is you don't get many of the premier games on Pac-12 anyway. So that's another thing. People, it's the Pac-12 gets the lowest rated games. You'll get the 1 o'clock Washington State versus, Arizona. They're just not even getting them. They're just not getting the views.
Right.
So nobody out east is going to watch Washington State versus Arizona, out here at 3 o'clock when you got primetime ESPN, SEC games, and the Big Ten's got their prime time. Nobody's going to turn on those games. So, and I think that's why DirecTV didn't want anything to do with Pac-12. They're like, nobody's going to watch this. We don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
and also in some of your larger markets in the Pac-12, such as Seattle and Los Angeles, you're full of pro teams and full of pro sports, and
right,
people lean more towards watching those than they do college football.
right. And that's where, like BYU and Utah's a growing state, and like BYU and Utah, we have professional basketball and that's it. We just, they have soccer, a professional soccer team, but like that, there's a big fan base there for college football because there's just not a lot of options. So, it's just the LA markets, like you say, they have so much other crap to do, but then I'm real curious, Joey, when you think about technology out west, it's pretty huge. And so I'm not saying the Amazon thing's a great thing, but people on the go, you know what I mean, with their phones and stuff.
Right.
You don't know because it's a
Well,
younger
I've been
generation
saying,
out west.
when the Big 12 was looking to go after their new contracts and things, I was saying, why don't they just develop an app? It would be so much easier. Just develop an app and do your own games and develop a Big 12 app in
Correct.
conjunction, to work with another company, maybe Fox or ESPN or something, and let people pay, a year for a year subscription to that app.
Right. Well,
And
yeah, exactly. It's like you're saying, okay, what if Amazon, if they try to strong arm Amazon and ESPN lowballs them, and the big Warren, dealt with that, and that's why he created the first college football network. And like you're saying, okay, if everybody's going to lowball you, take all of your Pac-12 games and create, put them on, like you're saying, an app, a streaming service,
yeah,
and just
because it
take
seems
all
like
the ad
everybody
revenue.
streams these days. I get YouTube TV once a year for 4 months, and believe me, I don't watch it except for college football. That's it. So
Right.
if somebody would create an app for the Big 12 or create an app for the SEC, I would subscribe to probably every one of those apps. It would probably be cheaper to subscribe to those than it would be to pay YouTube TV for all those things. I
Right.
would
See,
subscribe to those apps.
yeah, I switched. So because so for me to get the Pac-12 down here in Florida, I looked through the streaming services, and to get a decent one, I was going to be, I can't remember what package. If it was through Sling, it might have been through Sling TV. I still would have had to upgrade my package to get Pac-12 network, and financially, it was like, this is kind of ridiculous, just to add that. And so it was cheaper for me just to, either go with Comcast or Dish Network than to go through that expense that they're charging out here. So there's just not a lot of West Coast fans on the East Coast. So,
Right, right.
so what do you
So
do?
so now with all this news, though, Amazon, I don't know, it may not affect Amazon whatsoever discussing things with the pack, and it may not. It's not going to discourage ESPN and Fox, I'm sure, but at the same time, it can't help. And it can help schools, like I said, that are on the fence, like Arizona. Arizona seems to be on the fence about what they want to do.
Well, the thing is Arizona's an AAU school, and they really, I mean, it's a club. It's
Yeah,
really a club, and they don't want to lose that. And so, you're losing two AAU members in the Pac-12. The only two that aren't AAU are Washington State and Oregon. Or wait, no, Washington State, Oregon State, Arizona State. The rest of them are AAU. And so I'm not sure if Arizona, I think they're trying to hold on to their academics, you know, to compete in that world. Like
right,
Tony, you know Tony Altimore, and he's told you
right.
it they're not just competing for football coaches and facilities and recruits. they're recruiting professors. They're recruit. There's the academic side of recruiting too. That
Exactly.
people want to brag about endowment. Well, the endowment's this big, right? What's football bringing in you? What's endowment bringing you? So your endowment brings in more money than your sports. So
Right.
an AAU helps that endowment because your degree from an AAU school, depending on the curriculum you're taking, is worth more than some other state school.
Yeah. Fellow
So
soldier stories. We're talking about the Pac-12 scandal going on right now. If you want to call it a scandal, the Pac-12 news that came out today. We're talking about that. If you and Anthony want to come in and if you guys want to come in and talk about it, I've got the StreamYard link dropped there in the chat.
that's just
Yeah.
that's disturbing.
I agree. And and we've talked about too with Tony. I've talked to Tony about this. The pipeline for recruiting for Arizona State runs through California, and so they, them coming to the Big 12 interrupts that pipeline. So that's one thing that would hold them there. So
Yeah,
that they go out to California and recruit, and and they're recruiting, like you said, their future professors as well. So and come if they was to leave the Pac-12 because of this, and nobody's saying they're going to, but if they was, that would interrupt that recruiting a little bit.
Well, if you're Arizona, look at this. I mean, nothing against the Pac-12, nothing against the Big 12. So if you're in a conference you've already been in with, and you look across the chessboard and you say, okay, what are your premier brands? Am I jumping to a conference that's an equal? We're going to call them an equal, really, because you know what I mean? I'm not going to put one above the other. I call them equals, really. Shifting over to a completely different conference isn't that easy. It's just, it's just a big jump. And I'm not sure that they would want to do it. And I think it would have to take, just like we're talking, if there's a financial crap going on. Yeah. And also, who you going to jump with? Arizona's not going to jump by themselves. They're going to want somebody to come with them.
Right.
In my opinion. I mean, I may be wrong, but you know what I mean? Are you going to be the one that jumps the ship? I don't see it. I think
somebody's going to have to flinch first, though. I mean, for a while, I was under the thought process in my head was Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah will probably come to the Big 12 since the Big Ten picked off USC and UCLA.
Right.
And then I figured in Oregon and Washington would go to the Big Ten. Then I thought, okay, well, what about Stanford? So Stanford would go to the Big Ten. Who would they take? Then who would they take? Would it be a Washington State or would it be an Oregon State? So I think that but I do think that this could have some ramifications, if you will, to cause more conference shifts and conference realignment in this offseason.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, if if they're starting the scandals and that kind of crap, yeah, that's that could push them. And I mean, when you think about it, the four corners really dictate. I know Oregon and Washington probably hold the most clout. They're the most storied. But when you think about geographically, it's not much for those four corner, that area down there. The Big 12's not that far away. It's just as far away for Arizona, Utah to fly out to Texas. I mean, I think Texas is closer than Oregon. Like it's not, it's not a big jump. Now, Oregon and Washington, they're pretty damn far away from Big 12 country.
They are.
And they're not going to want to join. Where I think the four corner schools, honestly, they want to keep the pack together. But I don't know if it's going to happen. And here's the other thing: Ohio State, which is like USC, they run the conference, they run the Big Ten. Them in Michigan. Ohio State does not want any more members unless it's Notre Dame, and then maybe they'll grab one more team to supplement that. Ohio State has already said they're the ones saying, Washington, Oregon, you're not coming. We love you. You're great. We don't want any more teams. And I don't think even if they took a pay cut, they don't care. They're like, we got 16 teams. We don't need another Big East. We don't need 20 teams, because it just became, the Big East failed because it was too big. It was
Right.
just the conference was too big. So Oregon and Washington
you
are
had all
stuck.
you had all those prominent teams, but you had some leave early out of the Big East. If you remember, the Big East failed because, well, if you go back to early in it, Miami and Virginia Tech, Boston College, and Syracuse leaving,
Right.
and then you bump up to the later years, and Pitt's going to jump ship, and West Virginia jump ship. I mean, but there was no hope for the Big East to survive. Now, I know that I've seen a lot of people talking today that this will be the end of the Pac-12. That the Pac-12. I don't believe that. I don't. I don't. Now, does that mean that there won't be schools that jump ship from the Pac-12 though? With this going on, and if these schools have to repay this money like that, and you say they took out loans from the Pac already, that's going to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
They're liable to
But
jump.
yeah. And I mean, I don't know the financial, I don't know the financials.
And here's something that nobody's talking about. Everybody says, well, yeah, but what's in it for the Four Corners to jump ship and go to the Big 12? A $36 million payout? No, there's a lot more than that. Because guess what we've got? We've got a television contract with eyeballs.
Right.
What's the Pac-12 offer in eyeballs? The Pac-12 doesn't offer anything in eyeballs. So we've got, they can come out and actually get seen, actually get watched. That helps their recruiting. That helps their program. And on top of that, if the contract's written up that if we add Power 5 teams, the contract goes up.
Right. Well,
now,
I remember. I
not.
remember ESPN said they would add. Fox said no. Fox said, I think Fox put all their eggs in the Big Ten basket. They reached their, they reached. They don't have any more money to give. It's not that they probably wouldn't want. I think they're tapped out. Where ESPN said they would pay. So
right. Those eyeballs mean a lot though. When you've got the country watching you play a game, if Arizona and Stanford play, okay, that might be an interesting game. But guess what? If Oklahoma and Texas are playing at the same time, they're going to watch Oklahoma and Texas.
Right.
And I mean, it's just how it is. Or if, even I would even venture to guess that if West Virginia and Cincinnati were playing, they would get more eyeballs than Arizona and Stanford.
Right.
So,
well, just like Tony said, he said, you can link the time of day that a game's being played and the network it's on and who else is playing as to how many views it gets. Like, it's going to get more views, period, if it's on at this time on this channel, period. Like, people just turn on that channel, whatever game's on is on, especially if there's nothing else. And so I think that's going to be a huge factor. Like you're saying, how much viewership will you get through Amazon? But Fox, everybody wants to piecemeal some of the Pac-12 games. So USC and UCLA will be gone. But if you get like an Oregon, Utah, Oregon, Washington, to me, and who knows with Dion, Denver's big. They can get some viewers. Arizona's big. But I mean, you've got, nobody watches Cal, nobody watches Stanford. You've got Washington State, but Washington State, that's the thing too. Washington State's numbers are good, but when you look at what the times they're playing, they don't have a lot of competition.
Right.
But they still do good. They do good still, but they seem to get that late night window more than any other team. And so
I could bring up those numbers because I have all those charts, but they're on my other computer. I would bring them up for us. But yeah, I mean, when we look at TV viewership, Washington, Oregon, and all those teams up there in Washington State, they get good viewership.
Yeah, yeah, they
But
do.
actually, it pales in comparison to East Coast teams, and it pales in comparison to Big Ten teams. It's really crazy that and like I say, it has a lot to do with the pro sports that are out there on the West Coast. There's just so many. There's so
Yeah,
many
I
pro
mean,
fans.
oh yeah, basketball, football. I mean, just all of baseball. Yeah, it just people can only invest so much, and you pick a sport and you kind of spend your money there. And so,
Right. And
yeah,
it's not like these games are cheap to go to either. You know,
no,
I mean,
no,
time you figure travel and food and a couple of beers or something at the game, you're gonna spend a couple $100 to go to a ball game. That's if you've got your ticket already. You're gonna
yeah,
spend,
and parking and traffic and yeah, that's a
right.
nightmare. I wouldn't. Yeah,
Yeah, some of
and
these stadiums you go to, parking can be as much as $50.
yeah,
So,
seeing this
so when
scandal, I don't even know. I mean, I honestly haven't read any news today, but I do remember from way back the promise, and I'm not saying it was the network's promise, the Pac-12. It could have been like you're going to get this, and this is the commission or something. Maybe they had a percentage they got of the ad revenue or something, and the teams were promised a certain amount of money. I do remember that. Like I do remember as a Utah fan, like we were supposed to make a certain amount with the Pac-12. Like this is what we're gonna pay you, and it was short. Like it was supposed to be more than it was, and they gave them more than they actually got. So it's one of those like, well, you were supposed to get 40, we gave you 35, but we really only got 30 kind of thing.
yeah,
It was kind of this weird shake up, and everybody was like, well, we'll work it out down the road with future contracts. Because you know how contracts are supposed to escalate every year in price, cost of living, whatever. The
right.
the contracts escalate every year. So your first year of your contract, you get more each year as it grows. And I think they were going to try to level it out that way and go like, well, the next 3 years, we're not going to get that elevated money. We're just going to stay here and play catch up. But they just never caught up. And COVID just, I mean, 5 games with nobody in the stands. That's big money lost right there.
Yeah, yeah.
So
If you're out there in the audience listening and watching the show and you want to come in, I've got the StreamYard link in the chat there. Come on and join us. Hello, dude. I see you say send you the link. I'm not on my phone, so I will email it to you here real quick. Let me get that email to Golden Blue Dude.
is
All
Chris
right.
coming in?
Yeah, Chris is going to come in. Yeah, he's going to come in. So I emailed him the link. But anyway, if you're out there in the chat and you want to come in and talk, you'll just have to show your camera in the back, and we'll let you in. And there's Golden Blue Dude. Let me switch us so he can be in the driver's seat there.
Hey, Chris.
Can
You
you
got
hear
my
us?
echo off, man. I have an echo.
Let's see. I'll check it for you.
See, I've got somebody I've got somebody inside the program at Utah, and I mean, I'm gonna call my guy and kind of pick his brain and say, what do you know?
Yeah, that ain't better,
So
Chris. That ain't better, GBD.
No,
he froze up.
No, I'm echoing bad. I'm gonna pop off and pop back on.
I canceled it. Yeah, he'll probably pop back in. He's on his phone, and when he has guests, that's why he's not been able to do call-in shows. His laptop's been messed up, and it's getting repaired, but he's not got it back yet. And so when he does a show on his phone, for some reason he gets a bad echo. And so any guests that we have on the show, he's getting a really bad echo, and it's hard to even talk or think with the echo going on.
Oh yeah.
There he comes back. Let's see if that's any better for him. Any better for you?
Yeah, it was where I popped on and I was watching at the same time.
Oh, yeah, that kind of messes
Yeah,
with things.
and I know better than to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's been a long day. I did 4 videos and I had some other family stuff, so got a little bit of time. The one thing that a lot of people are not talking about with the Pac-12 that I'm wondering why I haven't even talked about it is the teams in the Pac-12 have been good to the Pac-12, but the Pac-12 conference hasn't been good to the teams in the Pac-12.
Correct. True.
So this is the whole reason why the Pac-12 has been going down the drain, because the Pac-12 is the elitist conference. They do have the best research and academics. I know the Big Ten is up there too, but they are considered the elitist conference. They have that time zone all to themselves, and there for a long time they were using that to their advantage. But the Pac-12 conference itself turned around and didn't reward their members, and that's the whole reason why the Pac-12's falling apart. And USC, UCLA jumped over to the Big Ten, who is the other elitist conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about, what will this do to affect teams that like the Four Corners and like Oregon and Washington, will the Big Ten go after them? Will the Big 12 go after them? Who's going to go poaching? And how this could affect conference realignment in general again this offseason. Because, I mean, if they go after the Four Corners, if the Big 12 goes after the Four Corners, and let's say the Four Corners come in, that's more travel for teams like West Virginia, Cincinnati, UCF. Do they stay? Do they try to get in somewhere else? I mean, so I think there could be some conference realignment shuffle coming out of all of this. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, well, for me, it's not a matter of what happens; it's when it happens, because I think we all know that the remaining Pac-12 teams, they want the Pac-12 to survive because they really do like that elitist status. It is what it is, but the Pac-12 conference itself isn't doing enough to stay relevant and be sustainable. So what's going to happen is they will find a conference that is sustainable, and the Pac-12 might be the first conference that completely dissolves. I don't know if it'll be the ACC and those 8 teams exist and it dissolves, but they still have that contract till 2036. So the biggest question for the ACC is, when are those 8 teams going to vote to do that, or are the Pac-12 teams going to get fed up first? Which one's going to happen first?
Right.
Because the Big Ten is looking to add more teams, but maybe they're wanting the ACC teams more. So it just depends on which one does what first.
Now, have you been listening to the whole show, Golden Blue Dude? Was you able to listen to the whole show?
No, just the past like 10 minutes.
Okay, because one thing we talked about is the fact that this media rights deal not being drawn up in the Pac-12 yet. I'm sure all this had something to do with that. They was waiting until all this got settled to talk about the media rights deal. And
Yep.
What has as much to do with all that is eyeballs on the game too, because Arizona State, Washington State, all those teams, they want people to watch their games. That helps recruiting, obviously. And the Pac-12 is just not getting eyeballs on games like they should be. So I think that has a lot to do with what can happen this offseason as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
You want to hear something crazy, Joey? I know the Big 12 had to hurry and jump when Texas and OU said that, they were leaving, and they went out and they grabbed 4 teams. I'm telling you, if they wouldn't have done that and they would have waited, I think they would have had a better chance of grabbing the 4 corner schools if they didn't add Cincinnati, BYU.
I agree.
100%.
Houston.
I agree.
I think those 4 schools probably would have jumped, because I mean,
Yeah.
nothing against those G5 teams and BYU. They're good, solid programs, But I don't care. Even as a Pac-12 fan, you bring in San Diego State, Fresno, Boise, whatever. Even though they're the top in their conferences, it's still considered watering down your league.
Well,
At the
this
same
is what
time,
happens
too.
when
And
the
so
conference
I think
freaks out and panics, and that's what the Big 12 did. Oklahoma and
Yeah.
Texas announced that they left, so the Big 12 once again panics and they go out. I mean, those are the best brand in the Group of Five, yes, but
And you can flip that
compared to
script
the
too,
Arizona
because
schools in Utah and Colorado, it's not
if the
comparable.
Pac-12, if the Pac-12 would have jumped at that time to go after like an Oklahoma State and a Kansas and a Kansas State, they would have taken on. They could have gotten a few teams away from the Big 12, probably.
Did
if
you
they
hear
would
the
have
vote?
jumped.
You
Did
know,
you
the
hear the
Pac-12
vote?
was a couple of hours away from having Texas.
Yeah, but Texas
about
pulled
that.
their Texas. Texas pulled a Texas.
Yep.
They wanted to control the Pac-12. And there's no way you're going to tell USC that you're going to have more control than them. They're the West Coast Texas. USC is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what really pisses me off is when the Big 12 got put in their predicament and you had the 8 teams sitting there, and basically it was, hey, do we add this, do we merge it? Because let's be honest, there was a possible merger of what was left of the Big 12. And I mean, West Virginia was way the hell out there, but it's still, the Pac-12 voted and it was 8-4 to expand. Who do you think the 4 teams were? We knew 2. They were all the California teams. Everybody else was on board to basically merge the Pac-12. And then the California USC knew they were leaving anyway. That's disgusting. That is just sick and wrong.
Yeah, it is. It was, and I think that when they announced that they were going back to the Big 10, maybe the Pac-12 should have took another vote. But by that time, it was too late because the Big 12 had solidified itself. So,
Right.
yeah, everybody waited too late to do anything. The Big 12 should have jumped on the 4 corners, and the Pac should have jumped on the Big 12.
Well, I mean, it's not said and done. I mean, if there's a crappy TV deal and it comes out, these teams are going to have to pay back more money. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of those teams out there, they have money. It's not, you know what I mean? They got donors. They got they got donors. But going forward, it's like, okay, you can rectify what's been wronged, but it's not getting corrected ever. It's just, it's a negative. I mean, you're going to keep going in the hole. You can only grab your boosters for so damn long before they say, okay, this is, we've had enough.
Here's what I think the Pac-12 needs to do. Okay. So, I mean, they have to know that their days are numbered. I mean, that they have to know that. So if I were the Pac-12 members, I would have a meeting with all the presidents and all the athletic directors and just be like, all right, so who is dead set on going to the Big 10? Who wants to go to the Big 10 no matter what? Whether the Pac-12 survives or not, who wants to go to the Big 10? All right. If it's just Washington and Oregon or maybe a couple other schools, fine. And then the schools that don't raise their hand, they're like, all right, we're going to the Big 12. Like, they just need to make up their mind right now before things get way out of control, because what's going to happen is if they keep doing this and, we're hoping we're going to still exist, what's going to happen is the Pac-12 is going to keep getting picked apart. And then, those other teams are going to start getting desperate, and they might end up in landing spots that they don't want, like the Mountain West or whatever, going independent if they have to. So, I mean, that's what I would do. I mean, that's not what they're going to do. But to me, that's just like, common sense. Like, what's coming. USC and UCLA are leaving. That's happening 100%. Oregon and Washington have expressed interest in Big 10. So you just figure out, all right, who's dead set on the Big 10? That way we know you're not in this group. And then whoever that is, the rest of us, we're going to the Big 12. And then that would actually put those few schools on an island, and that would actually force them to join the Big 12, even if it's just for a few years until the Big 10 comes a calling. But at least you're forcing their hand.
Right. But did you hear the conversation I had with Joey the Ohio State president and chancellors don't want any more teams. The only way they would add is Notre Dame, and then they might take one more team. They don't want their conference any bigger. Ohio State says it's not even a matter of money. It's not even if Oregon took a pay cut. They just don't want them. And
Until
USC doesn't want Oregon in there because Oregon is buying recruits out of California. And they don't, if Oregon gets to go down and play UCLA and USC, that's something they can sell to the recruits. They can say, hey, we go to California twice a year, or you get your family can come to those games. They don't get to sell that to them. So
I agree with that to a certain extent, except that they'll change their minds again whenever the SEC adds again, and that's going to happen.
The SEC?
Yes, the SEC will add again, and then the Big Ten will change their mind, and they'll want to add again. Because the Big Ten does not want the SEC to show them up and have more numbers than them.
K-Do, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says the worst part about this is how the PAC member schools have any faith in the PAC conference leadership moving forward. Exactly right. Exactly right. There's not going to be any confidence.
Bad hire after bad hire after bad hire.
Yeah, they're trying to hold the conference together because of academics, because of all the money that's going through the academics and professors and higher education. That's why they're trying to hold the conference together.
Well, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Even though these guys don't have a lot of football money, your Cals and your Stanfords, I mean, they have a lot of money whenever it comes to research and academics and all that stuff. So, yeah, you're 100% right about that. But they're playing they're playing the wrong game, is what they're doing.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm gonna go back to what I said at the top of the show too, and that is that this is a Larry Scott problem here. This isn't a George Kliakoff problem.
It's kind of like Schwarbach over in the ACC.
Yeah. So my hat's off to George Kliakoff for bringing it to light and jumping on this. As soon as he found out. But this was a problem back in 2016 when Larry Scott was there. So
yeah.
And they haven't fixed the problem. They just keep, it's just not getting better, but you're not getting any more views. There's just, you just can't get more money from networks if you don't have viewers that are going to, because you can't get ad revenue.
That's the thing. If
Ohio State is guaranteed
their own value.
Yeah. I think Ohio State, even when they play Indiana, they still get 4, 5, 6 million viewers. Even when they play a bad team, they're still getting higher ratings than most anybody, and it's easy to sell ad revenue. But when you got 600,000, you can't sell ad revenue.
Yeah, it's between Ohio State and Notre Dame as far as who has the largest fan base in the nation.
Now,
I'll tell you, nobody. Ohio State. You go look at all of the games watched. Notre Dame isn't even scratching Ohio State's back end. Go look at the viewership. I think it's not even close. Whether they're fans, they have more fans or not. That's not what matters. It's it's ad revenue. That's why they're making money, because where did the networks get their money to pay them? It's ad revenue.
That's why Ohio State will always get the benefit of the doubt of getting into playoffs as well.
Yeah, exactly. They bring the
another
bucks,
thing
man.
too that I don't know if you heard this, GBD, but I talked about this as well, that there's a new bill in California in the House in California that's going to require that 50% of all revenue from California universities' athletic budget flow down to the football, basketball, and women's basketball players. 50% of the revenue, not 50% of the profit.
Right.
50% of the revenue in California. Now, that's crazy. I don't, and supposedly the bill has a lot of support. It may not pass, but you know what? This is like the third bill they've tried to do with something similar to this. So eventually they're going to get something passed like this.
Yeah, that's I didn't know that. That's a little nuts.
Well, so here's what else is crazy. You only have one team left in the Pac-12 that's in the California school system, but Stanford is in the state of California, but they're an independent university. So I guess the law would still fall on them, even though they're private, right?
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I would think it would fall on them.
Unless
Because
it
it's a
was
state
unless it was
law.
a Pac-12
Well,
bylaw that they put in there.
No,
you know,
he's
Otherwise,
the
talking
thing
at the
about it
state.
is,
It's gonna be
the
a
no.
thing
state
about it
law.
is
If it's a state law, no.
they don't
So
have to
so
report.
Cal would be punished for what?
Yeah, Cal would be punished,
Yeah, and I would not want. Yeah, like
and San Diego State, and
Yep.
San Diego State, and those schools. Yep.
I would want to get out of the Pac-12 if California starts
See,
pushing
that's the
that
problem.
crap.
The Pac-12 needs to get rid of this attitude that they have. I understand the elitist and the research and the academics and all that stuff, but if they want to survive, they're going to have to try to go after Big 12 teams and or your San Diego States and your Boise States out of the Mountain West, just like the Big 12 backloaded after losing Oklahoma and Texas. Otherwise, they're just going to get picked apart.
Yeah. Well, it's like
They're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's not an elitist. It's literally, it's, if you own a business and you have 10% of your income's coming in from this department, but 80%'s coming in from this department, that 10% that's coming in, that department, sure, it's nice. That's not what's driving you. Like we were talking with Joey, their endowment, when you get better professors and your degree means more, you get higher endowment. That brings in more money than sports.
Well, when
So
I say elitist, I'm not, that's not a bad word that I'm using. I'm using that in reference to what you're saying right there. Like Cal is one of the most prestigious universities in the entire nation.
yeah,
I mean,
right.
they're one of the best. You get a degree from Cal and doors fall.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Very true.
And so the endowment is what the universities are bringing in, and that dwarfs the money they're bringing in football. So
Well, here's
that's
the
why
thing about it: is if
that's
they
why,
pass this bill, and let's just say, all right, so USC, it's not going to be exclusive for the PAC. It's going to be for all universities in California. So USC and UCLA will still have to fall prey to this.
yep.
And let's say it helps their football and women's basketball and their basketball team. What's it do to their baseball team? What's it do to their soccer teams and their volleyball teams? I mean, those sports that aren't getting a share of that revenue and things, and now all of a sudden the school's budget is cut in half because they got to give half of it to the football players and basketball players. Hey, them other sports are they'll be gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
You know what's hypocritical? Okay, isn't UCLA in the hole?
Yes.
Okay, they're in the hole, right? So
Substantially.
yeah. So how are you supposed to pay? How are you supposed to pay people out of a bounced checkbook?
Yeah. I mean, you're supposed to take 50% of your revenue, not your profit, your
Right.
revenue, and give it to the football players and basketball players. That's crazy. But leave it to California.
You guys are making so much money on football that you need to redistribute it. Well, did you see our books? We're negative. How the hell are we making so much money?
Yeah.
So what did y'all think about the idea whenever I suggested all the scenarios for the Big 12, and part of it was, the Big 12 is talking to Gonzaga for basketball, right? I think that on the east side for the Big 12, I know this is kind of on a side note, but it kind of popped in my head. I think on the east side for the Big 12, they should go after UConn, and I do think that UConn would be willing to do that because the Big 12 is an elite basketball conference, and they would make more money, and they'd have a lot of familiar faces already in the Big 12. How did y'all feel about that when you heard me mention UConn as far as the Big 12 going after them in basketball?
Why not?
I
mean, they're probably not ready to bump up to the football area yet, but
Yeah, they can do the Gonzaga thing, only join in basketball, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I would be afraid if like the Big 12 started this like basketball war, a poaching basketball war. I feel like the Big 10 would flex and say, "Oh, you want to get into that?" Big 10 is actually, they're not a bad basketball conference either. Not that they're winning the natties and everything, but you know what I mean? They're considered a good basketball conference.
Yeah.
And so I mean, if UConn was like, oh, we got to go to our neighboring states in a good, and make just as much money, because the Big Ten's going to have more money, they just go there. So I don't know. I'd be careful. I wouldn't start pissing on the Big Ten's shoes. If I was the Big 12, I'd be very casual in the way I tried to do things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It would be very, quietly doing it.
Right.
Yeah, very quietly doing it. And, I mean, could you imagine a basketball conference, though, with like Kansas and UCLA and UConn and Gonzaga and, let's say, North Carolina, Duke? I mean, could you imagine a
Yeah.
basketball
Crazy.
conference like that?
Yeah.
Kentucky? I mean, that would be crazy.
Yeah, well, it's just
Yeah.
crazy because the basketball is so much different than the football. It's bigger, as far as like what they're able to do and games they could play and mix it up and stuff, as to where football's it's very compact and limited, and it's not as
Right.
flexible. So I agree. Yeah, you could, possibly grab some more basketball, because I mean, believe it or not, BYU's basketball's been picking up pretty good over the last few
Oh
years.
yeah.
They've been
They
doing
got the
pretty
big
good.
bands.
Yeah, they've
Now,
been
you
doing
would have to
really good.
watch scheduling on that, though. I mean, you would have to watch scheduling really, really tough because, sometimes you're playing a couple of games a week in basketball, and you don't
Right.
want your team to go out and play UCLA and then go back across the country and play UConn and then go to the middle of the country and play Oklahoma or something. I mean, you don't want that to
Yeah.
happen.
Well, that's
Right.
why I had that in mind for West Virginia's basketball schedule, because I mean, adding Cincinnati, UCF, that helps a little bit, I guess. I mean, UCF not that much, but on top of that, they still added Houston and BYU, so that's more traveling. And if we add Gonzaga, my gosh,
Yeah.
that's a ton of traveling. So, to even it out, I mean, even if okay, so to get UConn, you probably
We have
wouldn't be
a
able
hillbilly
to just
skeptic.
get UConn. You could probably get like St. John's and Marquette and Creighton or Providence. Get like 4 of them and have a nice little east side section of the Big 12.
Hillbilly skeptic. I don't know how long you was in the back room, buddy. I apologize. I just now seen you.
Oh, that's no problem, man. I was just there for a minute or so.
How you doing tonight?
Doing good. Hope everybody else is. The one thing, you're talking about, that was California, right? Trying to pass a law that they have to share.
Yeah.
50%. Isn't that like what the NFL Players Union kind of has negotiated for their players? So is this like some sort of preemptive, play
Professionalism. Yeah.
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 A power move to turn it to professional sports. Yeah.
Did y'all see the video that I did earlier? I knew it was going to happen, and it finally happened. And it was the NIL deal that's gone bad. It was the recruit over there at Florida that flipped from Miami because Florida's somebody over there in Florida offered him like a huge NIL contract, like 4 years worth, over $13 million, and so he flipped. And so they brought the NIL deal to the Florida collective, who paid out, and they said, "No, this is too much money. We're not paying this kid this much money." So it was turned down. He signed the letter of intent anyways, because that happened before he signed. So the NIL deal gets squashed. He still signs after it gets squashed, and then he decides to back out of his letter of intent. And I found out today Florida did allow him to release, but that I knew it was a matter of time before that happens, and now Florida's on the hook, because in the future, now these recruits are like, can we trust them with these NIL deals? Now they're going to be like, well, we're not committing to you until we see the paper and it's signed, and then all we have to do is sign.
Yeah, and then that's going to be pay for play.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, but Bud Elliott, did you see what Bud Elliott did? He was on the Cover 3 podcast, and he says what these collectives, he was saying something about, and this was actually like a month ago. He was saying that they could promise these kids, get them to sign, and if there was ever any repercussions, that they're set up like a corporation or a LLC. He said, if it all goes bad, all they got to do is file bankruptcy, and it's a wash. Like that, nothing's going to come of it. So,
yeah,
because
that's all it is.
that's all these collectives are, just, a bunch of boosters, and they'll form a little company throw their money in, well, they can just file bankruptcy and walk away and form another one.
And who has the power of the purse? Is that the AD? Is that the coach?
No, they have
That's
nothing to do with it.
So
Joey,
now-
I got to bounce real quick,
now-
but I'm
Okay.
going to try to do a live show tomorrow at 10. I just ran out of charge and the phone's about
Okay.
to die. I just had enough to do a little bit, so I wanted to pop
All right.
in.
Okay. But
Can't
you
wait
know
to get my
something,
laptop back.
hillbilly skeptic. Go ahead and finish up what you're saying, buddy.
I was just saying,